I suppose we'll move on to the Tailteann Cup games. Obviously, at the weekend, it was Cavan 20 points, Sligo 114, Westmeath 322, Offaly 216. I mean, what has been your sort of thoughts on the Tailteann Cup in general? I suppose, like I remember you were saying before that you did have reservations about it, and you certainly weren't convinced by it. And I think a lot of us really sort of did have a lot of issues with it. But what would be your thoughts now? I mean, it's starting to really come full circle. I think the Sunday games coverage was very, very good on Sunday in more ways than one. And I think two cracking games. And really, when you look at a lot of the games in the Tailteann Cup, there haven't been too many games really that have been low scoring or have been disappointing anyways.
Well, I'm just going to say two things. The first thing is I was in the Tailteann Cup game yesterday. It was a brilliant occasion. It was a great game, 2 great games of football. The Tailteann Cup has done very, very well so far. The coverage has been top class. That only anyone can. There's been very, very few faults of any with it. The second thing is it's only year one. There is still like an awful lot can happen. I remember the Christie Ring was meant to be sold as the next big, huge competition. It was going to be great. Year one, brilliant. Westmeath beat down. It was a great game of hurling in Croke Park. After that, it didn't. It was gone. The competition hardly lasted the second year though. I think Antrim hammered Carlow in the final. It was on telly, and after that, I don't know. It wasn't on telly. I think Westmeath beat Kildare year after. But anyway, it just went down in significance every year. Now the Christie Ring is third tier competition nearly. Do you know, don't have to replace it. But I just think that the Tailteann Cup, the format next year is being tweaked. It's going to be for the worst, in my opinion, because they're going to have group stages. There could be dead rubber Tailteann Cup games that won't maybe generate as much excitement as they can, with 3 teams getting 4 out of 4 getting through in the group. So it's an awful pity this format isn't continuing in the Tailteann Cup next year. Do you know, because the format here seems to work very well. Maybe they could scrap the regional matches, but all in all, it was a great occasion yesterday in Croke Park. Now, again, the only thing is, the draw was kind of, it was good for the GAA because Westmeath Offaly was a local derby and it was always going to be a bit of interest, you know, type of way. So Westmeath and Offaly fans probably really got interested. If it was a different draw, would it have generated the same interest? I'm not 100% convinced, you know, but that's not the GAA's fault. It's not anyone's fault. So fair play to it so far. It's been a great success. And I think the final, the 2 best teams in the competition are definitely going to be in the final.
Yeah, I mean, what was the buzz like in Westmeath after a huge victory like that? As you said before, I mean, big rivals between the two, and to put out an emphatic performance like that, scoring 322. I mean, I'd imagine I'm sure a lot of you probably woke up with sore heads this morning, but at the same time, it's probably well worth it.
Well, I think just to go along in that, like Westmeath, I'd say it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say it was one of Westmeath's best ever championship performances. They played very, very well. They won by 9 points, could have won by a good bit more. There was no doubt they were going to lose that game. It looked like Westmeath were streets ahead of the opposition, to be honest with you, on the day. You know, and like it was a great result for Jack Cooney. He's put in savage work in Westmeath. He's a top man. Jack Cooney is. He's probably a bit like Brian Lohan and Clare, I suppose, when he was such an iconic player for Westmeath, and now he's done a brilliant job as a manager. His heart is definitely in the right place. They're playing very attractive football as well and making great progress. Mickey Graham is the same in Cavan. The two of them are similar type of people. You know, the two of them are very good footballers for the county and now doing very good job as managers. You know, and I think the Tailteann Cup would be a nice success to maybe bring home for Jack Cooney, because they won a Division 3 title in 2019 and the O'Byrne Cup. So a Tailteann Cup, a championship, lifting championship trophy along with that would mark a very, very successful tenure. If he stays on next year, which seems to be almost certain, he'll become the longest serving Westmeath manager in their entire history, having done 5 years. And certainly that'll be, nobody in Westmeath will begrudge that at all, you know?
Yeah, like, because you know what, like with Westmeath, they're the type, because I was going to ask you, like, where do you think Westmeath rank in terms of, like, are they sort of middle of the road Division 2 side in your opinion, a little bit better than that, maybe a little bit, you know, below that kind of? Because I was thinking, like, this isn't the first time Westmeath have put up a big score against a team in a game where it should have been closer. Like, think back to Laois last year when they beat them by 15 points, and they were actually trailing, I think, by half time. So I mean, like, Westmeath seemed to have these big performances in them, like the same against Cork. I remember watching them in that game in the relegation playoff last year, and I thought they played some of the best football I'd seen all year, no joke. But at the same time, like, the consistency levels just doesn't seem to be quite there, and they do seem to have some underwhelming performances at times. Like, what would be your take on Westmeath as a whole, or where would you put them, I suppose, in the football league pyramid, shall we say?
Well, I suppose just Westmeath have had 12 games this year in championship, and they've won, like, I'd say a bit like Kilkenny and Galway, they've only had one bad performance, and that was at home to Longford in the league, where they lost at home, and they were terrible that day. But they lost another game to Louth away. They were unlucky enough to lose that game. Louth were hard to beat in RD, you know, and then they drew it Fermanagh at home. But again, Fermanagh played well. There was, again, Westmeath could have won the game. They might miss. I think they missed a good goal chance towards the end. Like, but so Westmeath they have played well all year. They played very well against Longford in championship. They were unlucky. They played well enough against Kildare despite losing by 3 points, and then they played the 2 performances in the first 2 Tailteann Cup games weren't great, but they were hard enough matches away at Laois and Carlow when they got out with a win. So, and then yesterday probably was the best performance of the season. So, in the Westmeath, like Limerick got promoted ahead of them. Westmeath beat Limerick quite comfortably down in Gaelic ground. They played well. Westmeath probably Limerick maybe around the same level. The type where Westmeath could be a Division 2 team, but they're not. But I suppose if Westmeath were in the All Ireland quarter final this weekend and they had drawn Cork or Clare, you'd probably think that they could have a chance of winning as well. So they're not that far off, and the same goes for Cavan. Type of way. So Westmeath, they're probably good enough to just be a Division 2 team, I think, for definite.
Yeah, I mean, and as you were saying, I mean, because you have, because the thing about Westmeath as well is like you have so many options for scores. Even like John Heslin hit 7, and we all know the quality that he has. But Ronan O'Toole's always been a player that I've been impressed with since he sort of burst on the scene last year. I mean, very skillful player, great ball carrier. He kicked 5. Luke Loughlin's obviously come back into the fold, kicking 2 points as well. Lorcan Dolan with 2-1. So I mean, and Ray Connellan around the middle. Very, very good midfielder. So, like, you've a wealth of options. Maybe is defensive, is the defense maybe a bit of an issue? Because the way I'd look at it and think, Offaly didn't play well, in my opinion. It took them around 20 minutes to get their first score. They still finished with 2-16. So could that be a worry for Westmeath? Maybe is, I suppose, is the defense.
No, I wouldn't be too concerned with the defence, really. I think that Offaly, it was an open game of football. It was in Croke Park. Both teams played very open football, but I wouldn't be overly worried about Westmeath in defence. I think Offaly in the first half yesterday were very, very poor. I thought they'd be an awful lot better, and even the goal they got came completely against run and play, and Westmeath kind of went to sleep for a minute. So I don't think the 9-point winning margin flattered Westmeath in the slightest, to be honest with you. But like Offaly, I thought that they might they've had 2 very bad results this year. I suppose the first one was losing away to Wexford. They should be a lot better. Like Wexford came very near the bottom of Division 4, the kind of way, and that's not taken away from Wexford. But Offaly, they struggled to beat them in the corresponding rematch in the Tailteann Cup, and then they beat Wicklow in New York. I don't think anyone would be getting over carried away about beating New York, to be honest. I just think yesterday was a very bad result for them. Getting a bit of a beating yesterday and losing to Wexford is 2 very poor championship results, really, to be honest. And I think Offaly fans would be very, very disappointed because there is a bit of football. There are footballers in the county. They won All Ireland under 20 last year. But look, I think John Mahon had made it. To be fair to Mahon, a lot of people are giving him a lot of criticism. But before this year, he had taken them from a very poor Division 3 team to a Division 2 team, and quite enough to stay up. So I think as a whole, Mahon has done a good job across the 4 years, to be honest, to be fair to him,
Yeah, we'll just run through some comments here. Gavin says, funny how Westmeath versus Offaly was expected to be tight and not Cavan v Sligo, but the opposite happened. Yeah, it's funny how it can work sometimes. Sir Klopp says, hi Aaron and Connor, Tailteann's Cup been a great success in my view. The inaugural year is never perfect, but the football has more than made up for it. John Donnelly says Offaly get battered everywhere they go. Sir Klopp also says the group stage is the right way to go for next year, but 3 promotions instead of 2 could mean more dead rubbers, like Connor said, something that should be avoided. And there should be more incentives, both finalists getting boys into the final round of the qualifiers, the following year. I do believe the winner of Cavan Westmeath do get a boy into the qualifiers next year, isn't it?
Yeah, I think 95% sure that it's hard enough.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I heard that as well. Yeah,
it's hard enough. The format hasn't been. I think everything has been rubber stamped, but I don't know. They probably should find out. But I think they do get into the group stage as 4th seeds minimum. And I suppose if they were to do well in the league or do well in championship, get to provincial final, they'd be higher up seed, type of way. But look, sure, as a whole, it's the Tailteann Cup has been a success, and Cavan Westmeath, either of those teams that win it will feel that. I don't think anyone would be disappointed to win it. I think they're actually about to be delighted, Like Cavan, probably the difference between Cavan and Westmeath is 99% of those Cavan players have won provincial success with the All Ireland or Ulster title, which was a serious achievement for Cavan. The Ulster was a real Ulster championship. Probably, to be honest with you, Aaron, the 2020 and 2021 Ulster championship are probably the 2 most prestigious on the basis that the loser of each game was knocked out of the competition. There was no qualifiers, So Cavan really, really won a proper affair. No asterisks at all, Ulster Championship. That they're a really good team. Like Westmeath haven't done that. They haven't won anything like that. Now, to be fair, Cavan probably wouldn't have won an Ulster title. Like only anyone in Cavan is going to say that they would have. But Cavan probably are a more experienced team than Westmeath. And unfortunately, as much as pain say at the moment, if a gun was put to my head, I'd probably edge towards Cavan to win the title at the moment. Yeah,
and I suppose from an Offaly perspective, I mean, you mentioned there talent that's in the panel. And we've obviously seen Jack Bryant come in, Keith O'Neill as well, like 2 under-20 lads coming in, plenty of under-20 players coming through the ranks. They do obviously have injuries. Noel Darby, I believe, I think he's actually retired from what I've heard after tearing his ACL in training in the build up to this game. But obviously Keane Farrell's away with an injury as well. So there is still room for optimism for Offaly, isn't there? Like, there's still a lot of good players coming through. And you think in Division 3 next year, I mean, I think it'll be tough for them to get out of Division 3, I think, but I think they will be up there or thereabouts. Now, I don't know if John Mon's staying. I've seen a quote going around there that he might not be staying, so we'll obviously have to wait and see what happens with him. But generally speaking, I do think there's still a lot of room for optimism for Offaly.
Yeah, well, I suppose the only Offaly, they're going to be in Division 3 next year, but like 2 things will happen. They'll either push on and improve, and they can have a real chance of getting promoted. But again, like, the way they played yesterday, like, even allowing for injuries, absentees, etc., that performance, if they replicated, they could be good down in Division 4 either. Do you know the type of way? Like, it wouldn't be.
I think so, yeah.
Well, like, just the fact it could be Cavan in there next year, Westmeath down could maybe get a bit of resurgence. Like, it's not going to be that straightforward Division 3. Like, so if Offaly really, if they didn't really maybe get, like, if the fact they've lost to Wexford, who came 6th in Division 4 and lost to Westmeath, like, if they didn't, like, I don't think that will happen. I think that they'll probably regroup a bit next year and they will get a bit back and they'll probably make a serious amount of promotion. But like, they can't, like, Westmeath went down to Division 3 and then that happened. People say, oh, Westmeath will come straight back up. They went down to Division 4.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with Derry. Like, it wouldn't be a miracle either. Cavan, same thing happened when they went down to Division 3. People said they'll come back up. Like, if you're not focused, I often think we'll get out of Division 3, it'll be a cakewalk and we'll pull in for championship. And then suddenly you're ambushed, and suddenly then before you know it, you're in the bottom of relegation playoff when you haven't done the hard work early in the season, and then you lose and then you're relegated. So like, it wouldn't be, like, I don't know, it's hard to know, like, really. But Westmeath, I suppose their short-term target should be to win the Tailteann Cup, absolutely certainty target over the next 3 weeks, and then I suppose maybe the more medium-term target should be to get promoted out of Division 3 next year and try and become a sustainable second tier county with, hopefully, then I suppose a bit like Clare, if things go right, it could maybe get a chance of getting promoted to Division 1, which would be huge for Westmeath,
Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of the time as well. Like, you see, obviously, Laois, for example. I mean, they started Division 3 quite well. Like, I think they won their opening game, drew the second game out, and then lost, all the remaining games, and ended up getting relegated. So you can see this sometimes. Sometimes that can happen. You can go on a bit of a bad run, bit of bad form. But as we were saying, Cavan 20 points, Sligo 114. I have to say, like, I mean, I didn't watch the games live, but I watched this game in full back this morning. And I was amazed. Like, Sligo had so many goal chances, so many opportunities. He had 2 chances cleared off the line. Another chance, I think, when it was O'Connor who was running through. And I mean, all he had to do was hand pass it off to the man beside him, and I think it would have ended up in a goal. But I mean, what were your thoughts on this one?
Well, I thought Sligo played very, very well. They're probably their best performance this season, because their 4 championship performances to date have been a very narrow win in New York. It was a bit of a beating against Roscommon in the semi-final in Connacht. They were down a man for most of the match. And then the quarter-final against or the first round against Leitrim in the Tailteann Cup, or against London, sorry, they think they won that very narrowly. And likewise for the Leitrim match, they were very fortunate to beat Leitrim. So I didn't know where Sligo going brilliantly. They didn't play excellent in the league, but they really, really did produce a performance here. And Tony Mack was very, very proud of those players. And Cavan played well. I thought both teams played well. Both teams missed a lot of goal chances. Sligo could have won. Did the better team win? Probably did win, to be fair. I think Cavan were the better team on the day, but Sligo would be very, very disappointed. They will see it as a golden opportunity to get to a national final in Croke Park. But I think overall Sligo will take a lot of positive. And a bit like Westmeath, Sligo need to focus purely next year on getting out of Division 4. And then when you get out of Division 4, after you do that, you can make a case then about maybe we'll try and win the Tailteann Cup, or get to a Connacht final, take a scalp, whatever their medium-term target is. While Cavan, on the other hand, they'll see themselves very much as wanting to win the Tailteann Cup. And then, like, but sure, someone said to me earlier, a good point, Cavan could easily have won the Ulster Championship this year. They could have beaten Donegal that semi-final, and they would have fancied themselves against Derry in a final. So they're still not a million miles away off winning an Ulster Championship, So I think Cavan will, Division 3 next year will be very, very competitive. Cavan, Westmeath, Offaly, Down, Fermanagh, all those counties will be genuinely targeting promotion. Do you know that type of way? So that Cavan Westmeath, the final, does promise to be a cracker. And I think Cavan Grove McKieran's a very good footballer in the forward. I think Killian Clark was making his 100th appearance yesterday, had a good enough game. The cornerback for Cavan was very good too. The Galligans had a good game. Cavan, they have a few very nice footballers, and they'll be very hard beaten in the final,
Yeah, I mean, Grove McKernan obviously kicking 5 points, but obviously our mutual friend in John McMahon. I don't know if he's watching. Shout out to him, but he was obviously a big fan of Jason McLaughlin's performance, obviously at cornerback. And what's interesting with Cavan as well is like Paddy Lynch kicks a point. Obviously, a tremendous job from Evan Lyons, the fullback for Sligo. But the thing is with Cavan is they're kicking double digits in a lot of their games in terms of points. They're not getting that many goals, but they still feel like they're another level to go up on. Like if you can get an extra couple of scores out of Paddy Lynch going into that Westmeath game, like it's I'm not gonna lie. Like I have family from Westmeath. I'd love to see Westmeath pull through, but to be honest with you, I think Cavan might sneak it.
Yeah, no, I think I'm not going to disagree. No, hopefully Westmeath, but I'd love to see it. But I'd say it's very, very tight. It's really 50-50, though. I think if you were going to go anything, it would be 52-48 or 51-49, maybe slightly in Cavan's here. But it's very, very... Westmeath have a real fighter chance, though, on the other hand. But both teams are actually going to have a lot of experience playing in Croke Park. Like Westmeath and Cavan both are there umpteen times now. I suppose... The difference is Cavan have experience of playing of a really big occasion in Croke Park with the 2020 All-Ireland semi-final. I suppose the asterisk to that one is it was behind closed doors. So they haven't maybe got the intensity of a huge crowd. But then Cavan, they played in an Ulster final in Clonus in 2019, which was a big crowd. So they have played bigger occasions. Westmeath played Dublin, but 2016, 2015, it's still 6 years ago. It's a long time ago. Do you know the type of way? Westmeath, while there's a lot of the same players, I suppose they have experience playing the big games too, but it'll be a very, very good occasion. And I'd say both fans, like the four counties that's going to be involved, like it'll be two of Derry, Clare, Armagh, Galway, like especially particularly with Derry Armagh, you'd imagine they'll bring savage crowds. Cavan will bring a big crowd to Croke Park, and Westmeath will bring a big crowd to Croke Park. We will get behind the team. So it promises to be a very good occasion on the 9th of July,
Yeah, Colm says here, Tailteann Cup winners maybe should get placed into senior quarterfinals next year. It might give teams even more of a reason to go and try to win it. What would be your thoughts on that? I mean,
I don't know about that.
Yeah, we see the format obviously in hurling with the John McDonough. What would be your thoughts?
Well, I like the way the John McDonough works in the sense that the winners of the competition do get a chance in a quarter final. And I think this year, if you were to give Cavan or Westmeath a chance in a quarter final, they'd have a half a chance of winning it, particularly if it was against one of the qualifier winners as opposed to the provincial champions. Because as mentioned earlier, if Westmeath or Cavan got a chance at Clare or Cork in particular, you'd fancy your chances of winning. Now, that's not to say they'd be favourites, and but they would have a chance of beating either of those counties. And then they probably would lose either of them, but still, they'd still have a chance, And I think I don't like the way in hurling that they give the winners and the runners up a chance. I think that's a bit excessive, but I wouldn't mind seeing a winner getting a chance into the All-Ireland series, because then the Tailteann Cup teams would still be very much in the championship. Do you know that type of way? Now, I suppose the counter to that is, if that was to happen, could we potentially see a situation where a team deliberately drops to the Tailteann Cup to have a better chance of getting to the All-Ireland quarterfinals? Do you know that type of that stuff could be known to happen, but I'm not sure how it's going to work. I don't know what I be in favour of giving them an automatic quarterfinal place, but I do think it's a good idea that the winners of the Tailteann Cup are guaranteed a place in the All-Ireland series for the following year, regardless of their league position.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that as well. I think at the end of the day, you win the Tailteann Cup, there definitely should be some sort of incentive of it, and maybe another incentive is you get to play a provincial final at home or something of that respects, or maybe something that could be arranged around that. Now, obviously, the GAA would probably never do that to be perfectly honest, but it would certainly be something that I'd be interested in. But look, listen, Connor, much appreciated you jumping on. I suppose who would you say has been your player of the weekend? I suppose we'll go football, hurling.
It's a tricky one. I suppose we'll do one of each. Hurling, I suppose, purely for his second half performance, I'm going to say Shane O'Donnell. I thought he was majestic again against Wexford when the tough fight got going for Clare. And football, between the four Tailteann Cup crowd, sure, we'll give it to one of the Westmeath lads for the sake of John Heston. I think is a footballer. He's just a super footballer, and he'd probably go down as Westmeath's best ever player. So I'd say John Heston, probably I'm going to give him the footballer of the week. I think out with the 2 games, he was very, very impressive for Westmeath. I think Pat Spillane, to be fair, for Sligo, had a great game too. So anyway, I'll go with John Heston though.
Yeah, interesting take. Better than Desi Dolan.
Well, look, I'm not going to go comparing players at the moment, but Heston just is absolutely gifted, And at the kind of the Westmeath team now, nobody's going to argue it's as strong as that team in 2004, but that 2004 team obviously had brilliant players. Two of Westmeath's best ever players standing on sideline yesterday with Desi Dolan and John Keane as selectors, and I suppose a lot of lads could make a valid claim, but I think at the moment Heston just pure natural ability. gifted as a footballer, you know, really very, very, and he has delivered on the big occasions to Westmeath. I suppose most notably probably the game against Meath in 2015, which was one of Westmeath's best ever results. So one of the best anyway, if not the best. John Heston has to go down with that bracket, you know.
Yeah, I'd probably go for Aaron Shanahan as hurler of the week. I know he came off the bench, but I think the impact he made was
super game.
It was so key for Clare turning around. I mean, scoring 1-2, and I thought Ronan O'Toole was very good for Westmeath, so I'd give it to him. But yeah, look, listen, Conor, much appreciating you coming on.
Thanks very much, Aaron. No problem at all. Thanks for having me.